You played what looked like a very strong move. It was an active move. It was an aggressive move. It maybe was right there where your opponent's king is. But then your opponent either just takes that piece you just moved, or he takes another piece, and you can't do what you actually planned on doing. So there was no trick, no real combination. You just left the piece on the board hanging. And the worst part about this, you didn't even see it coming. And up to 1200 rating, there is a lot of mistakes like that. And today, in this video, I'm going to show you why it happens, what happens in your brain, and of course, how to stop it and stop hanging pieces. And first, we have to look at what is a hanging piece actually. And there are three different types of hanging pieces. The first one is actually the obvious one. If we look at this position right here, let's say black plays b5 here, and you can see that after black plays b5, this piece here, the pawn is just hanging because it's not protected by anything, so we can take it with a knight on c3, and yeah, it was just unprotected, and we can just take it away. The second thing is, for example, here in this position after c5, e5 is a piece is considered hanging when another piece with lesser value, like the pawn here, attacks the knight on f6. And you can protect the knight as much as you want to, but in the end, if you capture the knight, you just gave up, here in this case, you gave up 1 point, basically the pawn, and you gain 3 points because you took the knight. So it doesn't matter how many times you protect the knight, you just have a bad trade because you just win 1 point and you lose 3. Here as black, of course. Another way would be you win 3 points and you just lose 1 point. And the third option is, which is a little bit trickier sometimes, is, for example, here in this position. So if black takes on e5, now we can see that c5, for example, is only protect once, but at the same time, c5 is attacked twice by the pawn on d4 and by the bishop on e3. So here, in this case, white can just take on c5 and win another pawn because black can't recapture on c5 because that would just lose even more material because white just captures the knight. So this is everything you have to know about hanging pieces. Hanging pieces is any piece that can be captured without your opponent losing material in return. And let's keep on and see what happens actually in your brain when you play these moves. And I want you to understand that it's not actually a knowledge problem, not at all. It's a thinking direction problem, because you can imagine that every player has like a movie in their head, and it's of course it's a nice movie, you know. You imagine the nicest stuff for you. You can win material, or you can checkmate and stuff like that, but they don't take into account that your opponent also can make moves, right? And this is the important thing to understand. So you have to also apply the same movie you have in your head for your plans to your opponent's plans, or your opponent in general. You have to do the same movie for your opponent. So in other words, you have to find also the best moves for your opponent. And this is so-called one-direction thinking, that you only think your own plans, but you don't consider your opponent's options. And the fix is actually very simple, because there's just a small break before you move a piece, and actually moving the piece, because let's say you found a good move, or you want to move a piece, and before you move that piece, ask yourself, what can my opponent do after this? And it sounds very simple actually, um, but sometimes it's not as simple as it sounds, because when you play aggressively, when you attack, when you play active, there's kind of dopamine that is entering your brain, and you want to do it, and you can win this like that, and but you oversee the most simple moves of your opponent, and we have to avoid that at all cost. And I'm going to show you here with this example how to attack hanging pieces, how to stop hanging pieces. And I want to walk you through to through two examples, and we can actually start right here, because that's the variation I want to show you. And here, white played e5, and black took with a d pawn on e5, and we have already seen that per definition that hangs the c5 pawn. But here, white played a different move than taking on c5 or taking on e5. White played queen to d2. And well, white had the plan, okay, I want to play bishop h6 and then capture on g7, and then I capture the dark squared bishop, and the king has no protection anymore, and then I can play stuff like h4, h5, and then I can attack the black king, and white didn't consider all the options for black, so he just only thought in his direction, but he didn't think about the opponent, what he can do. And there's actually a very simple move right here, and you can probably already see it, because after queen d2, black just took on d4 and is delivering a fork, a simple pawn fork, which already loses material for white, and with that, eventually the game. And these are very avoidable mistakes, because if you think, okay, I want to play queen d2, imagine this in your head. I want to play queen d2. What can my opponent do? And usually, how to really avoid this is to first you look for checks with a capture. Okay, after queen d2, there is no real capture with a check at the same time. Then after that, you check for checks. Okay, there is no check here in this position after queen d2. Then the third option is I look out for capture moves, and then you can see, okay, there are two ways. Black could take on d4 with the e pawn, or he can take on d4 with the c pawn. Let's see what captures are there. He can also take on f3 with the bishop. And I think that's all the captures that are possible after queen d2. And when you imagine this in your head after queen d2 and see, okay, he can take on d4 with, let's say, the e pawn, and then, oh, okay, wait a minute, this is actually not a good idea, because this forks my knight on c3 and the bishop on e3. So maybe I have to find something else than queen d2. And this is how you can avoid these mistakes. Just make a small pause, break, and think, what can my opponent do? And when you do this, you will win so many games, or even draw games that were lost for you, just because of this habit. Really make it a habit, because most of you people, you already know this, but you have to really make a habit out of it. And when you make a habit out of this, you can stop these mistakes, and you win most of your games, because then your opponent is the same way. He also thinks only one directional, but you will see your the mistake of your opponent, and you can take advantage of that. So this was the first one. So here white played queen d2, and then I have another example. So black takes on d4 and eventually wins a minor piece. And let's keep on going in this game. And here, for example, this position already actually looks pretty bad for black, but still white tried to still attack and didn't see all the options that his opponent has. So here black played knight to g5. And well, the knight on g5 looks actually very aggressive. You move a knight where the opponent's king is, you attack f7. Well, okay, f7 is protected for now, but maybe white thought, okay, I can create something there on f7. I move the knight on an active square, right there where the king is. That needs to be good, right? But white overlooked actually a very simple idea. And this is rook takes c2. Black can just take on c2. The king has to move, and then it's game over after black takes on a2 with checkmate. And yeah, this is how most games go, because you only think one directional. You don't think about the opportunities for your opponent, the options for your opponent, and you can just stop this with stopping for just a second before you make your move and think, what can my opponent do after this? And well, this is my video. If this helped you, hit the like button and subscribe. And I put out more educational chess content. And yeah, drop a comment below and tell me what was your worst mistake or worst hanging piece. So in that way, I don't have to feel bad about mine. And I see you in the next video.